Well, the Department of Defense has a new director this morning, a new director put in charge of AARO, which is the office in charge of investigating UFOs and UAPs. Yes, the Department of Defense has just announced their new director, and it's a curious choice because he's a former NSA scientist, and the NSA has deep connections to the cover-up and the secrecy surrounding these projects. So will we see truth now? Will truth finally hit the airwaves? Will we learn about all of these black projects that the government has been carrying out for many, many decades? Or will there be more of a cover-up? Let's ask one of the finest, one of the most well-respected ufologists in the world. That is Dr. Michael Salla, author of many incredible books on these programs. And he writes at exopolitics.org. And Michael joins us now. Doctor, great to see you as always. Welcome back to the show.
Great to be here, Clayton.
So what did you make of this new appointment at AARO? First of all, maybe you can set the stage for our audience that isn't familiar with AARO. If they're sitting there saying, oh, this is all craziness. This isn't actually an office in the United States government. What does AARO do specifically, AARO?
Well, the All Domain Anomaly Resolution Office was set up in 2002 to study UFO reports, or UAPs as they are now known in the official literature. And because there had been this accumulation of reports of UFOs near Navy ships, near military facilities dating back to 2004, the Pentagon had set up a number of study groups. And quite recently, you had Luis Elizondo, who was the first director of the ATIP program, which was the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, set up in 2009. And from that, you've had a number of successor organizations, which now end up with the AARO office, which is set up in the Pentagon, and it reports directly to the Deputy Secretary of Defense. So that's a very high-level official, Kathleen Hicks. And what the Pentagon is trying to do with the appointment of this new director, Dr. Jon Kosloski, from the NSA, is to perform the duties of reporting accurately on UFOs, determining what kind of threat, what kind of danger they pose to military operations, to civilian aircraft, and to also release information to the general public about this phenomenon and to kind of acclimate the public to some of the deeper truths that are behind this phenomenon. And the predecessor of Kosloski, which was the inaugural director of the AARO office, Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick, I mean, he really was a gatekeeper, and he created a lot of resistance, a lot of resentment, and people felt that he was doing nothing to protect whistleblowers from coming forward and revealing what was going on. So I think with this new appointment, they're wanting to turn that around and make AARO a more friendly place for whistleblowers to come forward to reveal what they know.
We've had all sorts of whistleblowers, and these aren't just farmers, standing out there in their fields. These are high-level members of the United States military. These are highly respected individuals who've come forward, or there's others who've been held back from coming forward because they've feared some sort of career destruction, right? That their career would be ended. We see in the point of, David Grush and other individuals who've come forward. A lot of criticism is then heaped upon them. We've seen other whistleblowers in the United States government coming forward from the FBI. They've had their lives destroyed by the FBI. So it's not been a very comforting whistleblower experience in the United States government over the past few years under the Biden administration.
And also under AARO with Dr. Kirkpatrick heading it. I mean, he was actually very critical of David Grush when Grush came forward and gave his testimony at a congressional hearing in July of 2023. I mean, he actually tried to throw a lot of cold water on Grush's claims. And so it was the direct opposite of what he was supposed to be doing. I mean, as the director of AARO, I mean, he's supposed to be vetting whistleblowers and giving them some kind of protection so that they could reveal everything that they know. And but what we got from David Grush was that it wasn't just him, but there were a number of other whistleblowers who had gone to the AARO office under Kirkpatrick, and that they were prepared to testify and reveal what they knew about these crash retrieval programs, about the recovery of EBE bodies, and also the existence of reverse engineering programs in corporate facilities. And Kirkpatrick didn't want to know anything about that. He shut all that down. And so this is really why the AARO office fell into such disrepute among the UFO research community, because he was doing nothing to protect whistleblowers. But I think under this new director, and given the office that he comes from, the National Security Agency, I think we're going to see an effort to turn that around. They're going to create an environment for whistleblowers to come forward where they can actually be protected and reveal some of the things that they know. And I think this is where you maybe have a contrast between different institutional biases. On the one hand, Kirkpatrick, he worked for well over a decade with the CIA. I mean, he was involved with the CIA. He was a research scientist with them. So he kind of embodied that institutional ethos, if you like, which is that, we know best and we're going to keep everything under wraps. And the CIA has long been the lead agency in covering all this up. Whereas the NSA is a very different institution. It's more closely aligned with the military mindset. And I think that the people in the NSA, that they actually would probably be more inclined to revealing more of the truth to the general public, but doing it in a way which is very graduated, very responsible. They don't want to do any kind of anything that shocks the American public or creates civil unrest, but certainly reveal enough so that people start paying attention and prepare them for so much more that needs to be revealed.
So I think what's really fascinating, I want to talk about the Antarctica connection here, the Antarctica base. I've been long fascinated by the massive underground city, the massive underground military complex that's in Antarctica that's kept off limits. Like if you go there on a cruise with your family, you will only be allowed to see a portion of Antarctica. You will not be allowed to see any further into these secure locations. As whistleblowers have pointed out for decades, they have been involved with managing interstellar trade out of Antarctica, according to Navy whistleblowers. That's not according to me. So keep your hate messages away. These are from Navy whistleblowers who've come forward, Spartan 1 and 2. And also we have Dan Sherman, whistleblower Dan Sherman from the U.S. Air Force, also who's confirmed these Antarctica doings. Now, and the NSA runs the office for managing interstellar trade, if I understand that, out of Antarctica. Can you, I mean, for somebody listening right now who's sitting there, their mind is blown. Wait a minute, we have a base in Antarctica and we're running interstellar trade out of there and the NSA is involved in that? I mean, that sounds like fantasy.
Yeah, well, the NSA has been involved in tracking and monitoring UFO activity ever since its inception in 1952. In fact, that was probably one of the prime reasons why it was set up, signals intelligence, that the NSA has developed the capability to detect the appearance of UFOs anywhere over the Earth. And what has been found in studies is that wherever there's UFO activity, there's often a burst of gamma wave activity or gamma electromagnetic waves. And so the NSA has been able to set up a worldwide monitoring system where they can detect the appearance of UFOs anywhere on Earth. And so they've been detecting UFOs down in Antarctica for decades. There were reports on these UFO activities near Antarctica. And we know that the NSA has been monitoring signals traffic from Antarctica for a long time, as they do all over the world. But what's very interesting was these many reports about activities in Antarctica from various whistleblowers suggesting that there was a base there. And there were two whistleblowers that came forward, and they first reported this to Linda Moulton Howe, a veteran UFO researcher. They were called Spartan 1 and Spartan 2, and they said that there was a interstellar trading base in Antarctica that was run out of the headquarters for the National Security Agency in Fort Meade, Maryland, out of the 6th floor. So this is where it becomes very interesting why Dr. Kosloski has been loaned by the NSA to run the AARO office for a period, because he's there on detail. I mean, he hasn't been permanently moved to the AARO office. He's there. He's an NSA scientist, and the thing is, he is aware, or would be aware, of a lot of this, because clearly his job in monitoring UFO activity would give him need to know about whatever records the NSA has on UFO activity. So this is where he very likely will be briefed, or has been briefed, about this office at the NSA running this this interstellar trade out of Antarctica. And he also probably is very familiar with the testimony of Dan Sherman, who was a 12-year Air Force veteran who was seconded to the NSA to monitor communications with these grey extraterrestrials on behalf of the NSA. So the NSA has been tracking UFO activity. They've been tracking and communicating with extraterrestrial civilizations, and that they also run a interstellar trading base out of Antarctica.
I've interviewed whistleblower Eric Hecker. He was stationed in Antarctica. He worked for Raytheon. He was a defense contractor. He worked there at the base. He is now a whistleblower. He talked on my show about the massive military base in Antarctica and how that base at the South Pole is actually a giant air traffic control tower that monitors, as you point out, interstellar craft. Now, this has been confirmed by the Navy, U.S. Air Force whistleblowers. Again, members of the United States military, not me. I'm not saying this. This is the United States military confirming this. So are you hopeful then that this new appointment of Jon Kosloski will in fact lead to more disclosure? Will we learn about, will he be forthcoming about what the NSA has been involved with, or will he be apt to pull a CIA move and try to keep a lot of this quiet? What does your gut tell you as we enter into 2025?
Well, there's always been a factional struggle within the US military intelligence community between those that don't want disclosure to happen, keep everything under wraps, and those that have been pushing for disclosure for many, many decades. And I think the NSA is among those institutions that wants to reveal the truth. I mean, you have, for example, the NSA director under President Trump. He was the one that went in there and warned Trump when he was there at Trump Towers in New York that they were being bugged. The intelligence community was being bugged. So the NSA is, I believe, much more institutionally inclined to have the truth revealed. And so I think that they've looked at what's happened. I mean, the intelligence community has looked at what's happened under Kirkpatrick. They say, well, AARO has lost all credibility. No one trusts it. No one believes it. We have to turn things around. So let's put someone in there that does seriously want to push the disclosure movement forward, reveal some very important things that are being covered up, and prepare humanity. Because I think those that are running the institutions that govern the national security agenda over the next decade know that the US needs to prepare the public for disclosure, because our future lies in space, in the construction and the development of fleets of spacecraft using advanced energy propulsion systems, using anti-gravity principles, torsion field principles, because this is the only way you can keep up with the extraterrestrials that are out there. Because I think those that are clued in or briefed about the big picture know that our planet, and the US in particular, needs to play catch up, that the planetary population needs to really learn a lot more on what's happening out there, so that the massive fleets can be built, so that the Earth can be on par with interstellar civilizations. At the moment, it's all done through a black budget, through covert projects. And while there are small numbers of anti-gravity craft capable of interstellar travel and using wormholes and so forth, these are kind of relatively few, because it's only a very small segment of the entire planet that's behind it. So I think this is why you're having the US push the Artemis Accords, why they're doing technology sharing with many countries that are involved with the Artemis Accords. I'm working with a whistleblower called JP, and he said that he did a mission to a huge spaceport in Alabama, and he said that there were pilots from approximately 30 nations being trained to fly these flying saucers
in Alabama,
that were built by Nordics in Alabama, in an underground facility, a huge spaceport in Alabama, near the caverns, near Huntsville, Alabama, where they have massive caverns down there. There's a massive spaceport, and you have hundreds of these flying saucer craft there, and the Nordic extraterrestrials responsible for that port are training pilots to fly those. And those pilots are not just from the US, they're from other countries, France, Britain, Australia, Canada, Germany, and so forth. And I think the incentive is the Artemis Accords.
Fascinating. I think a lot of Americans just, it kind of goes over their heads because they've got their families they're dealing with and taking care of and trying to put food on the table right now. And all of this stuff is happening, under the ground in these towns, whether it's in Colorado, whether it's in Alabama, whether it's in New Mexico. The United States government actively involved in this. And I think we need to shed light on this. And regardless of how you feel about it, this stuff has been redacted for many, many decades, and I would love to. I hope that we get more disclosure on this. Absolutely fascinating. Dr. Michael Salla, always great to have you here on the show. Thank you for this update on this AARO, this new move at AARO. Let's hope that the NSA portion of this is now forthcoming. I wonder what Edward Snowden would say about the NSA being forthcoming. We'll see if he weighs in on this over the next couple of days. Dr. Michael Salla, great to see you as always.
Thank you, Clayton.